All right, so I guess you call this part two of the little mini series on the blue wave. I thought I'd talk about the governorships up for re-election before I talked about the House. Since the House is going to be a rather large effort, I'm still trying to figure out how to deal with that. 435 races might be a bit much to cover in one video, but here we have 36 races for governorship. And interestingly enough, if you look at the numbers, it's almost the exact opposite of the Senate. You have 26 Republicans up for election, 9 Democrats, and 1 independent. And a heck of a lot of people are term limited, mostly Republicans, but mostly Republicans up for re-election. As well, if you look at the states that went Clinton and Trump compared to who the incumbent is, you see it's 9 Republicans, 1 Democrat, and 1 independent, which is again almost the flip of the Senate. Now, governorships are harder to talk about since they are still statewide races like the Senate, but they don't have the national implications. Their implications are more statewide. So you're going to see more statewide issues at play. You're not going to see as many people fall in line with the Trumpian lines and with sort of the national RNC platform. So that's going to make a difference. The centrist candidates are going to get more play. You're going to see more outreach to the center rather than the extremes. First, we can talk about the one Democrat up for re-election that is in a state that Clinton won. That's Tom Wolf in Pennsylvania. Even before the election, he was looking at quite low approval ratings. So his chances for re-election were met to begin with. The state going Trump is not helping his case, as well as the state's embroiled in a bit of a redistricting controversy. Dems are trying to push back against the electoral map the Republicans drew. And this is something that could look to Trump voters as the Democrats trying to stand in Trump's way and rig the system for the Democrats. Of course, this could also look to the Democrats as a way to fight back against the Republicans rigging the system with gerrymandering and all that. I would believe Tom Wolf will lose that race. It's hard to say again, statewide races, you're going to see more play in the center. But low approval rating paired with some controversy, I think the Republicans can flip that seat. But of course, they're looking at 9 more vulnerable seats, and a lot of them in reliably blue states. You see a Republican governor up for re-election in Massachusetts, Maryland, Vermont. Those were probably not good races for the Republicans. Paul LePage is term limited in Maine. He's an interesting figure. Billed as quite crazy. He's a bit of a firebrand. The interesting thing will be to see who wins the primary in that race and how much like LePage they are. Despite all the criticism he got for being a firebrand, he actually did get reelected decently with a decent margin. It's weird. He has low approval ratings. He's billed as crazy, but he gets reelected. So we're going to have to see if the Republican voters in the state want another firebrand like him or push more towards the center this time around. I think a centrist would have a better shot, but that's a hard call. Another interesting one is the New Mexico governor, Susana Martinez. She's term limited, and that state went Clinton. The immigration issue is actually quite big in that state, and it looks like, according to a couple of different publications, the state's starting to lean Democrat in that race, which isn't a big surprise given Trump's views on immigration. That could be the most vulnerable race for the Republicans. LePage's craziness isn't quite a detriment for the next guy coming in, but Trump's immigration rhetoric could very well be a detriment for the next Republican in New Mexico. So where I don't know if Maine's seat will flip, I'm willing to bet New Mexico goes Democrat. The Libertarian Party actually reached out to Gary Johnson to try and get him to run for governor. He was a popular 2-term Republican governor. Think what you might have about him as a Libertarian candidate. He is a fiscal conservative without the immigration baggage, but he did decline that. He's trying to stay out of politics. I think he would have had a better chance than whatever Republican's going to be going up. but I don't have high hopes for that race. Now, Rick Scott's seat is up. He's term limited, so he'll be out. But that state did go Trump, and he's a Republican, so it'll be interesting to see how the Democrats run against that seat. I guarantee they'll be using the Parkland shooting and trying to paint him or him and the broader Republican Party as responsible in some way. Lord knows if they're willing to suggest that Gillespie supporters are racist maniacs trying to run down children, they'll have no problem using dead children to push their political agenda in that race as well. That could hurt the Republican, and the state is not reliably Republican. So even though that state went Trump and the incumbents are Republican, I would watch that race. But really, it's hard to say with governors because they're going to play to statewide issues more than the national conversation. The fallouts actually could be fairly substantial because these elections are going to be important for redistricting after 2020. So if the Republicans get wiped out, they lose 9 of their contested seats, or unlikely they lose too many more, though Rick Scott's could go and the other 9 could go. They could lose 10. You might see a lot more Democrats being competitive for the House races after 2020, but that's still to be seen. Really, what you can say is the math is not in the Republicans' favor. They have a lot of seats up for re-election. They have a lot of term-limited governors who aren't going to be able to use their past achievements as leverage for centrist voters. But you'll probably see a lot of candidates playing towards the center, so it's going to be difficult. It's not really clear what's going to happen with the governorships. It's a blue wave might be an exaggeration. Losing 9 of 26 seats is not exactly a wave, but it could hurt later on. It's going to have larger repercussions for congressmen if the redistricting goes towards Democrats. It will have some impact. But you can't really say too much without getting to the minutia of the statewide politics, and I don't know that much about it. I'm just looking at the math, and the Republicans look like they're at the disadvantage here. So that's governorships up. I'm hoping to look at the House next. I'll have to figure out how to do that in a manageable way. But until then, we are the Republic's walls, and they'll have to come and take it.